Now, Jewell, as you're sipping on your mineral water there,
Might be vodka.
yeah, why not? Enduros, 2 at the moment for the Aussie drivers, a 3rd one for the with the internationals coming on board. I'm biased as a co-driver. How many do you think is a good number?
I think in 15 races, 3's a nice mix. If we get to 18 races, I'd like to see 1 more. And should we ever realise 20 races in a year, which I think is probably too many, I'd think we'd be in probably 5 endurance drives or co-drives. I was born and bred on the 7 a.m. Bathurst start. Always 2 drivers. Well, should have been 2. Moffat's one on his own, hasn't he? But I think the balance is okay, but I'd happily introduce 1 more over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree.
Good for you.
Oh, look, it is, and I think some of the best footage actually throughout the year behind the scenes is when the main guys are watching the co-drivers in those single driver races or the sprint races. I suppose from a purist punter perspective out there, and the Speed Cafe fans probably saying, oh, we don't want to see a co-driver affect the Drivers' Championship. So there's a little bit of that argument creeps in, but I think it's good for guys that have stepped back from full-time racing. Obviously there's myself a few years ago, but you've got Warren Luff, Paul Dumbrell. They're a bit of a loss to the sport because they are still capable of stepping up and holding their own. So, and from the other side, you need to get the DVS guys into these cars and into these races if they're going to gain experience and look at stepping up like Scott McLaughlin has. His efforts in the Enduros this year, I think, have helped secure that GRM seat. So I'd like to see at least 3, if not 4. I think it's a good mix, and I reckon the main game guys would be quite comfortable with that.
And that, of course, is because you get paid per event, so that would be a significant increase to the retainer, wouldn't it?
Pro rata, yeah.
That's how it works.
Definitely not. There's just not enough good quality drivers, and unfortunately, it still comes down to whoever's got the most money will then get the better drivers, and to have one driver affect another guy's championship, it isn't really, unless we have more 2-driver races and they halve the points or quarter the points or something like that. It's just, it's not a driver's championship when someone else is winning you the points or losing you the points, as it might be.
I think that there's the right amount of co-driver races or shared driver races out there. It's still an individual driver's championship, and I think it should stay that way. And having 3 endurance races out there certainly is enough to spice things up and mix things up, and it creates another element of our championship and makes it even more diverse than it already was. It is tough though, because the more races you have, the bigger budgets you've got to have to try and secure an endurance driver. And the very, very frustrating thing is some of these endurance drivers that aren't good enough to make it as a full-time driver in our category are getting paid more per round than some of the best drivers in the category that work on a full-time basis. So I still think that whole structure is a little bit questionable.
Definitely, I think they're great. I think they're a good part of the sport as well. And I mean, we've seen now with the international event up at Gold Coast and how successful that's been, and it just adds a different element. And I guess, the Sandown 500 and obviously Bathurst 1000 is its own special event, and I like them. I enjoy them. It gives you something to work with and different aspects of the race that you have to try to overcome.
Not really. No, I think it's good with the 3 2-driver races at the moment. It means less laps for us if we have someone else in there sharing our car. But I think the Gold Coast event would be good to go back to non-international and just make that a 3rd endurance event with co-drivers from Sandown and Bathurst.
Yeah, I think that's a good number, but maybe they can look at doing something with those 3 events. And we do the 2 classic endurance races at Sandown and Bathurst, and then you go to the Gold Coast with another driver introduced into the series with no experience. And maybe it would save a lot of money if you use the same drivers for all 3 and turn it into a championship. I don't know. I know there's all sorts of stuff getting discussed, but I'm finished at the board now and just running our own program, so it's probably being discussed.
I think it's good for the championship having multi-driver per car events, but at the same time, obviously what happened to me this year, I didn't end up racing on the Sunday because of an accident, because of all the rookies, so to speak, drivers going crazy out there. So if there are experienced drivers in the cars and it's a safe enough situation, then I'm all for more. We should go for it.
It's a hard one because obviously if you've got co-drivers that aren't racing every year, you got to get them miles, and you've got to do that the most economical way you can, and it's probably cheaper to do it at a race meeting than it is at a test day. So, but each team will have their own way of going about it. It's a tough question.